Long Ring, Long Land. Kind of a prologue arc, if you will, for the Water 7 saga, which is the most hyped thing I've had, always kind of shouted at me, like, wait till you get the Water 7 saga, wait till you get there, post Ennies, all that good stuff. And I haven't heard too much about Long Ring, Long Land, so I'm not sure how the fandom feels about it as a first-time reader, but I can say that for something that's setting up a major saga, it was pretty good. I liked a lot of it. Some of it might have felt a little bit inconsequential, but I had a blast reading this, and by the end of it, I have never been more excited to continue reading One Piece, and I am ready to go. I'm Jimmy Nuts, one half of the Dudes Talking Manga here. I am doing kind of reactions and thought videos as I make my way through my first read of the One Piece manga. So if you end up liking this video, I would love it if you hit like. If you dislike, you can hit dislike. But if you love it, I'd love you to stick around and join me on my journey. And then also follow my friend Andrew's journey here on the channel as well when we do our long form discussions. We would absolutely love to have you here. With Long Ring, Long Land being a bit of a setup and being the intro to the saga, I wasn't expecting too much. I'd also heard, the only thing I'd really heard about it is that it was very lighthearted. And I do think so far, this is the most humorous of the arcs that I have read. I thought Usopp was absolutely killing it. I thought Foxy was very, very funny. And then Luffy up to Luffy type things is always a really good time. So it put me in a good mood. Like sometimes, do you know what I mean? I'm sure you do. A lot of you watching these videos are experienced readers or watchers. When you get immersed in One Piece, it is hard to not be in a good mood, it feels like. And this was a very uplifting arc for me that ended off on such a strong point. I do want to note that I did in fact read the manga. I didn't watch any of the anime episodes in this arc, so if you have any of the anime episodes you would recommend, please let me know. I do know there's a lot of filler in the anime for certain arcs, and this happens to be one of them, according to my friend Alan, who does watch the anime, and I didn't have that experience. So if your experience watching the anime is different from me reading the manga, just know that that could be the discrepancy, is that for me, this was short, sweet, 19 chapters to the point, even though I could see how some people would think, like, why did we do all of this? But I always seem to trust Oda in his process to make things matter later down the road. I generally have talked in depth about things that I have found thematically enriching about the series or that have resonated with me. This arc, I was trying to pick out some things, and I will say a lot of it was thrills and laughs, which is really great. But the one thing that kind of stood out to me here, maybe it's not so much a theme, but it's the idea that we started this arc looking for a new crew member. We need a carpenter. And quickly, we end up in a challenge where we could actually lose a crewmate of the Going Merry. And this got my wheels a-turning. I figured the crew would probably grow at some point because as far as pirate crews grow that we have seen, this one seems relatively small. But somehow I have felt safe on this journey so far to think that we won't lose any crew members. I never thought about it. I never thought about the possibility that we might not always have this crew. And this is the first time that I think Oda has really introduced this idea. And I think it's probably on purpose, which makes me extremely nervous for what's to come in Water 7. I have no idea what transpires in this saga, but Oda seems to set things up in the earlier arcs, the short arcs, the prologue arcs, that are revisited later, at least from my experience so far with One Piece. And this makes me nervous that maybe we could lose a crew member in this saga. And it became even a little bit more concerning for me a little bit later in this arc whenever Zorro basically tells Chopper to quit whining and man up. And it's a moment where I feel like maybe Zorro is trying to empower Chopper. And that's probably what it is. I also think that he has confidence that they're going to be able to get him back. But Zorro is, he has that loner type of feel to him. And it was in this moment where I started to consider that maybe eventually Zorro will want to go do his own thing, because he is trying to be a master swordsman, and everyone has their own personal motivations and goals on this crew. It's actually one of my favorite things about One Piece over something like, Dragon Ball Z, which is another favorite of mine, where the motivations really aren't that nuanced. You just want to be the biggest and strongest. But Zorro, his motivations are to be the greatest swordsman. And I do wonder at times if that goal will always be something he can obtain while being on a pirate ship with Luffy. Probably. But just based on the fact that Oda introduces the concept of losing a crewmate and then seeing the way that Zorro acted in this moment, which I do think was with positive intent, it just had me wondering, like, man, if we were to lose a crew member, who would it be? And for some reason, I get a bad feeling that Zorro could end up breaking away just because of his loner personality. He has shown a lot of loyalty, so I'm not trashing Zorro at any point in this video, but it's just something I felt, and I thought it was very interesting, and I wanted to mention it just to have it documented. Before I kind of talk about the events that happened with Foxy and everything else, I just want to talk about the ending, because this is the part that I absolutely loved and am here for. This is what has me fired up, wanted to turn on the camera. I just finished this about 20 to 30 minutes ago, and I wanted to record immediately. Admiral Aojiki showing up at the end of this arc, and I hope I'm pronouncing that name right, but the Admiral showing up at the end of this arc and the revelation on Nico Robin's face, it was just kind of a whoa moment, especially for all the lighthearted stuff that had came before in the battle that I enjoyed, but, you know, there was stakes weren't super duper high for me because I trusted Luffy to get the job done. Admiral shows up, and it's like, oh, this is one of 3 of admirals. So you know that this is an important position with a whole lot of power. He has one of the weirdest entrances as what we would consider an antagonist to our pirate crew ever. He seems very confused, believes in lazy justice. He's sleeping, standing up. Why is he here? He's just on a walk. Turns out he's actually there to see Nico Robin. But he ends up helping Tajit and Sherry, which was really awesome. Like, I was like, oh, maybe this is one of those Navy guys I can get behind, kind of like Smoker, right? And that quickly changes. But when he busts out the chili devil fruit power, I lost it. I was like, the implications of this in this story, absolutely crazy. And Luffy has always felt like a worthy adversary to pretty much anyone we've even met, even Crocodile, right? Crocodile was very capable, very powerful, but I still believed in Luffy to continue to get up and to fight. This is the first time where, like, there's levels to this game. And Usopp even kind of mentions, like, are these the level of people who are going to be coming after us now? And I have to concur. This is concerning. Aokiji also mentions that he knows Luffy's Gramps and says, oh, you're just like him, and I owe him a debt, so maybe I will kill you right here. This seems to really concern Luffy. Like, he starts sweating. It seems like he's nervous. And it dawned on me that just because I don't know Luffy's past doesn't mean that he doesn't know his past. How much does he know about his grandfather? How much does he know about the journeys that apparently his family have been on? Obviously, Ace is doing his own thing as well. So there's a lineage here. We've already talked about in my prior videos how I think that Roger's obviously involved in it. Maybe Roger is his dad or Gramps or whatever. But this seemed like a moment where Luffy was very much caught off guard and very nervous. And even whenever it is not the best decision, Luffy always seems to be confident in what he's about to do. And this is a moment where he takes a bit of pause. And I gotta say, I am now more curious than ever about Luffy's past. But there's another character that the Admiral goes after that now is my favorite character of the crew, but is now the most mysterious, and that is Nico Robin. He goes into saying that Nico Robin has, infiltrated this underground world, the underworld of the Grand Line, or all the seas of the world, and she's always the lone survivor whenever they are destroyed. And that is not a great track record to have. He also mentions that, she's had a bounty since she was 8 years old because she is so dangerous. And sometimes bounties do not equate to how dangerous they are to the world government. And that is something that made me take pause and think, is Nico Robin chasing the true history possibly going to jeopardize the power structure that the world government has currently in this world? Did they build their power from a false historical narrative, and now Nico Robin has the ability to maybe topple that system with the true history? It would also possibly explain a little bit more about Nico Robin wanting to seek the true history outside of just, kind of like a scholarly interest and curiosity. And how does this tie into her family? Because he specifically says that she was raised to have a brutal personality. I feel like Robin is mysterious. I know she's powerful, but I never thought that she would be someone that would be considered brutal. These questions provide a phenomenal setup for the rest of the Water 7 saga, and the remainder of this is the most hyped up I've ever been to hopefully get some answers, but also to see what's happening, because we know now that Water 7 was not somewhere that this Admiral expected them to go next, and he also did not expect it to be so close to the Navy headquarters. We're probably going to see some more Admirals, I think. The action that happens at the very end of this arc is also fabulous. Luffy ends up saving Robin, does this like back bend, and then does a great handoff to our boy Usopp, who's undefeated in the 100-yard dash, it seems. But then there's a moment where Luffy challenges him 1v1, And the Admiral questions whether or not Luffy knew that he then could not touch the rest of the crew because he agreed to a one-on-one, or did Luffy really believe that he could defeat him? I imagine it's a bit of both. I think I just get the feeling that Luffy is recognizing that this is a different level because of the information around his Gramps, as the Admiral called him. And I think that Luffy was probably taking a more strategic approach, and I think he wanted to save his crew first and foremost. So this ending was just insane, and I had to get that out early in the video because I didn't want to wait all the way to the end where I've kind of zapped my energy screaming at you through this camera, and I also wanted people to see that reaction because I love this. Yes, it is a prologue, it is a setup, but my God, just the way that this thing ends, it always feels like a new part of the world is opening up to us, not just because we're traveling there in One Piece, but also because of the new powers in history that gets unveiled. And this is it. This is it. I am so ready for the rest of this saga. So I would absolutely if I'm going to talk about this arc, I have to talk about the Davy back and the competition, the challenge and everything, but also about, Davy Jones, this guy who is apparently at the floor of the sea, that is a legend. Is there a chance we're going to see this character in the series? I think it's almost guaranteed we're going to end up at some point on the ocean floor. Like, there's no way we don't. We've already been to the sky, so at some point we're going to have to go under. At least that's my hunch. The challenge was fun. I thought it was really cool. Whenever it was all said and done, I did kind of look back on it and I said, besides introducing the idea that we could lose crewmates in the future, what is this doing? And I don't think that this is the most impactful arc ever when it comes to like the middle of it and just the main plot point besides the Admiral stuff. But it was a lot of fun. The donut race was good. I thought it maybe went on just a little bit too long, but I really enjoyed the interference. I also enjoyed the dials being used from Skypiea, and then having Foxy interfere with his Devil Fruit power, the slow beam. That was really cool. I'm going to say it. I don't know how people feel about Foxy. I know that he's involved in a lot of filler, I've heard, in the anime. But for me, Foxy had a really cool power. He was very sensitive, and he did make me laugh a ton. The fact that every single time he was insulted, he would kind of fall down. People like, it's okay, boss. It's okay. He just wanted to be accepted. He wanted to be loved. And it seemed like he wanted to get more people to love him. And I don't know. I found him to be hilarious and a pretty funny villain. Not at the top. He's nowhere near a crocodile, but he's a good time. Like when Foxy is disguised as a woman and asks Luffy if his skull is numb and then calls him a numbskull. Like, it's so stupid, but I laughed out loud. I really did. I couldn't handle it. I even went back and read that section. I just thought the whole thing was funny and the chase through the ship, and it was really great. I think the ball game, which is round 2, was far better than the donut race, mainly because I really enjoyed Sanji and Zorro fighting, but then coming together. Zorro is just kind of prickly in general, and then you have Sanji, who has a different idea of what's important on the crew, most of it focusing around Nami and Robin. But this game was cool. I like the idea. I like the twist on it. I like that they were down a person with Chopper on the other side now. And yeah, I like this one. The crooked ref was also a good way of stacking the favor into the enemy's corner and really making you think that possibly they're going to lose round 2 and lose 2 crew members, and they would only have the opportunity maybe to get back 1. But of course, at the end, Nami helps out the boys just a little bit by stealing the red card and the whistle, which was a nice touch. And it was funny to see Sanji be like, Nami, did you see? Are you proud of me? And I think Robin's like, you did good, or like, you're cool. That was a nice little nod for Sanji, and I did find it funny. But I did like round 2 more than round 1. And then you get into the main event, which I thought was definitely the best part of this little shindig that we did. And that was because it had a big combat sports type feel. And honestly, Usopp as a cornerman was hilarious. I loved it. The fight never really had me worried at any point because we've seen Luffy get up time and time again, but his persistence is always at least somewhat inspiring to me to see and watch him get up and up again. Having a good high guard with the gloves was also a nice touch as a combat sports fan, but not the best fight in the world, but it was clever. I like the mirror use at the end for him to get the one up on Foxy and then the beatdown. And I especially liked at the end when Foxy was like, hey, Great job. And then he goes, vengeance, shoulder throw or whatever. And everyone's like, really, dude? Stop it. And then after the fight is over, I did get something wrong. I thought for sure we were taking a carpenter from this crew because we mentioned it at the beginning. I said, oh, how obvious is this? And I was dead wrong. Luffy ends up doing the more charitable thing, drawing a horrendous Jolly Roger picture on that sail. But more importantly, you know, looking out for Tanjit and Sherry, which is where we end up leading into the Admiral stuff. So just a couple thrills, a whole lot of laughs, and the Admiral stuff at the end, setting the stage for what could be my favorite saga to date, if it lives up to the hype that I have had it kind of given to me and all the praise that's been heaped upon it. I did want to mention that Don Quixote being included here and actually killing Bellamy was a bit of a surprise. I didn't expect to see him. I'd kind of forgotten about him at this point, but him killing Bellamy and speaking about a new era was quite a brutal moment in One Piece and very surprising. And it's going to be something where I think he's going to end up being a major player down the road. And I hope that maybe we get a couple peeks at him. Maybe we'll see him in Water 7 in the future. But I hope maybe some of these cover stories end up switching to him and I can see what he's been up to, because it looks like he's going to be expanding his crew. And I also wanted to take time to mention that when we're talking about the Going Merry and the crew's talking about the Going Merry, the one thing that I find really heartwarming and also part of the charm of the series is that the Going Merry is a ship, yes. But it's something that I think we take for granted as readers sometimes, because this is something that we've kind of grown attached to subtly, because it is the vehicle that has sent us on this journey and has carried our crew. And the way the crew speaks about the Going Merry is as if it is a character in its own. And that to me is awesome, and it makes it feel really, really important that we get a carpenter to upgrade the Going Merry, take care of it, cherish it, because this thing is pivotal in this journey and is a character by itself, and happens to be a character that I really, really love. So I wanted to mention that. I like the way Oda does this, and I love the way the crew talk about the ship. So is this a prologue? Yes. Is it a setup? Yes. Maybe some of the fighting was a bit fluffy, and maybe possibly the donut race maybe went a little bit too long. I don't know. I had fun. And that's all I really want when I read One Piece, knowing that bigger stuff is coming. So no, not the most revolutionary arc in the world, but it certainly sets the stage for something that's going to end up being epic, I feel. So I like this arc quite a bit. Long Ring Long Land is a successful arc for what it was setting out to do. And that's all I can ask. What did you think about Long Ring Long Land? If you're a longtime reader, or you're like me and you're a first time reader and you just read it, what did you think about this arc? If you watch the anime instead of reading the manga, is there a lot of filler? Is that true? Is there a lot of fluff added to this? And is that why people don't seem to mention it as much? I would love to know your opinions down in the comments below. Did you love all the puns in this arc? Because I did. I thought that they were just absolutely hilarious. I have not laughed this much at an arc ever in One Piece or any other manga for that matter. And for that, Oda, I got to thank you, because I needed a bit of a boost in my mood. So that's great that I can come to One Piece for that and those big epic moments. I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check out this reaction thoughts. I hesitate to call it a review because I'm not as well read in this medium as many other people who can review these things and break it down. But either way, I appreciate you being here. If you like this video, you can hit like. If you dislike it, you can hit dislike. And if you loved it, think about subscribing. I would love to have you along for this journey on the Grand Line. And until next time, be good, be safe, and we'll see you again real soon here on Dudes Talking Manga.